ready to go?
Yep.
Okay.
We're recording.
All right. Well, it's 7:32, so why don't we get started? Welcome to the July 21st Town of Austining Planning Board meeting. And why don't we start by introducing ourselves? Sandy, want to start?
Sandy Anelli, Secretary.
Oh, Valerie Menastra, Planning Board Consultant.
Kathy Zalantis, Planning Board Attorney.
Nancy Arcia, Consulting Engineer at the Planning Board.
Jim Bucinas, Planning Board Member.
Gareth Huffam, Chairman of the Planning Board.
Carolyn Stevens, Planning Board Member.
And
Don Sharrett, Planning Board Member.
Jesus Lopez will not be able to join us tonight. So the first item on the agenda is the Rinaldi subdivision, and Mr. Riching. If you would start us off with any presentation you'd like to make.
Sure. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Chuck Utchig. I'm a member of Langen Engineering, and our responsibility on this job is to develop the site civil engineering and subdivision drawings for this application.
Just one second, I want to see. Can everyone on Zoom hear? All right? Hear Mr. Utchig? Donna, can you hear him?
Yes,
Okay, great. I just wanted to make
very
sure.
well.
Okay, please.
So I think probably what I should do is quickly go over the things that we addressed from the last meeting. We have updated the plans. We've added things like the detail for the concrete retaining wall and the stone veneer, which the board was very concerned about the appearance. We've added that detail and a picture of what it could look like. That's part of the plans. We have gone back and amended the landscape plan to change the variety of trees per your suggestions. And we actually moved some of the trees around. And we got a copy of the report of the tree inventory, and I can quickly go through that. But generally, one of the things that I wanted to show the board, the gray scaled areas on this plan are the steep slopes, over 35%. And you'll see that for the most part, we've tried to avoid those areas, both grading and planting. So the premise of this project from the start was to try and do that, and I think we continue to try and do that. You'll see that these steep areas, there's no grading, no planting, except for this corner where we have our stormwater management practice. So we've tried our best to stay out of those steeper slopes areas. I know there was a concern about planting trees in it, and although we do it on other projects, we've tried to not do it here because I know there was a concern. The other thing that we were asked to do is cut a section from the adjacent property. We took county available data. This is the adjacent property, that's their pool and building, and we cut a section through our site. It's about 800 feet away. It's about 35 or more feet in grade change. There's a stand of trees right here in their property. There's another stand of trees here, right along our property line, and then we go up. So one of the things we didn't do was, this being a residential development, residentially zoned piece of property, you will be able to see the houses. And you can see that in this section, you'll be able to see the top of the house. So we provided that information. I also got 5 or 6 comments relative to drainage, which the chairman has asked me to quickly go through, which I'd be glad to.
Please, thank you.
So the first comment was, what is the stormwater management system designed to? We've had a couple of storms with 3 inches of rainfall. This system is designed for a 100-year storm to control the rate of runoff to pre-development conditions for a 9.5-inch rainfall. So the storm events that we analyze and we control runoff for are much more significant than 3 inches. So we designed for the 100, which is 9.3, all the way down to the 1-year storm, which is a couple of inches. And we moderate the rate at which we discharge our flows so that we don't exceed any of those. So the downstream system is never impacted more than it is in its current condition. We don't change it. And in fact, in our case, we've got a 10% reduction in the rate of discharge. So there's a benefit to the way we've designed our system. The life expectancy of this type of stormwater management system, which is an open infiltration basin, my best answer is it'll last as long as the road and the houses. There's no reason why it won't, if it's built correctly and maintained. This is a very low maintenance system. It'll grow, it gets mowed a couple times, that's all you have to do to it. So it's really a good solution to this type of area versus the underground infiltration system that was originally proposed, which has all kind of maintenance issues, has a much shorter lifespan, and in the case of that design, we will tell you it didn't meet New York State DEC criteria. So one of the other comments was, why did we change? And that's why. It was a non-compliant design. So we've adjusted this to a design that does comply with DEC criteria and your own stormwater regs. Does water remain stagnant in the basin? No. This is designed as an infiltration basin, so there's a metered outflow, and then any standing water that stays should infiltrate out within 24 hours. So it's not designed to have standing water in. Where does the flow discharge? Per recommendation from your town engineer, the discharge from the basin comes out in this direction towards the stream channel. We've provided the design of a stone outlet, which is an energy dissipator, so the flow of the water that's coming out of that pipe, which is a 15-inch pipe, gets slowed down. So there is no erosive effect going down the hillside. And again, remember, we've reduced the amount of our discharge, so it's not more, it's less. It's just a matter of controlling it at that point and making sure that the riprap is designed correctly, which I believe your town engineer will verify that it was. How is this revised centralized system an improvement over each house and its own SWIS? I'm not sure I know what that is. So your prior design, first and foremost, didn't even capture, so the design that the applicant put forth to the board, that you granted preliminary approval on, didn't even capture all the runoff from the road. There was a portion of the road up here that wasn't captured and sent to an infiltration practice. So we've changed that. The entire road drains to a practice, and that's a design that the DEC supports and complies with their criteria. Some of the houses have their own systems, capturing runoff from the impervious area, controlling them in an underground infiltration, and then slowly letting them out. So it's not a single approach, and I'm not quite sure what was driving the question, but subdivisions like this all have centralized systems. That's the nature of how we design these. And then the last one dealt with, it seems to be, why did we change? And I'll go back to the reasons. The original design didn't comply with DEC criteria. It was a very high maintenance system. And we think that when it was if it were properly designed, you would have needed about twice as many Coltech units as were shown. So there was a lot of disadvantages to that design. And then lastly, there was a request for a fertilizer control program. Your code doesn't have any such provisions. I do a lot of these subdivisions, we typically don't do that. New York State has adopted regulations on fertilizers that it controls the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus that are in it. You can't even buy it anymore. But if you found it necessary, we could include it in our HOA documents to the extent that we could recommend a fertilizer application rate so that people would understand the importance of applying fertilizer at the right rate. And then lastly, we did get a copy of the arborist report. He found some trees that were dead that we didn't call out to be dead that he suggested to be removed. He kind of validated our list pretty much, and then he identified, I think, a half a dozen trees that he thought were special that we should try and save. So we identified those, and unfortunately, they all fall in really bad locations for our plan. One is in the middle of the stormwater management basin, not on the edge, dead set in the middle. Two are here in the front of this lot, and I asked my engineers to look at it and see if we couldn't modify the design of the driveway to keep the two trees in the front of the house, which we would love to do. Problem is, redesigning this driveway to go in straight would end up being about a 10 to 12 foot retaining wall, And the reason we need this length is, for those that you are familiar, we have a differential in grade and we need a distance to go down. So knowing your reaction to walls, I didn't think modifying it to put a 10-foot high wall was a smart thing to do. So we did not do that. The other one falls smack in the middle of this house. And as you recall, when I showed you the steep slopes plan, there was an area of steep slopes up in here that we put the house here for a reason, to balance it. So the only one that we can modify the driveway to accommodate, there's a Japanese maple that sits in the middle of this driveway, and I can switch this driveway to make it work. So we looked at them, we tried to adjust our plan if we could. Unfortunately, only one location we could adjust our plan. And I think that pretty much summarizes the changes that we've made. You know, Valerie has issued a memo. I don't know that we have any outstanding comments from her. I haven't seen anything from Dan, but you know, we think we've addressed the comments that the board has asked us to present the information on. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Why don't we ask the consultants for their views, if you have any comments. Valerie?
So my comments were based upon the last round of submissions. The applicant did address the prior comments. The only thing I did note was that the Craig Stevens, who's here in the audience, was going out to the site and had some comments, so I think that should, you know, the board should consider the comments that he had. But my memo just really focuses on final subdivision approval conditions that I would recommend, which would include the recreation fees. The applicant is requesting a waiver, just to remind the board, for the sidewalks and street lighting requirements along the proposed town road. Instead, they're proposing to install sidewalks along Stormy Town Road. And a stormwater easement is proposed on site, and a stormwater maintenance agreement with the town would need to be executed as a condition of approval.
Could you elaborate on their request for a
So
change
if
to
you
the
re-
recreational fee?
No, there's not a request
oh,
that they
it's-
agree to pay the recreation fee. The
Ah.
request for the waiver is dealing with the subdivision regulations, which require sidewalks and street lighting along the proposed town road,
Right, and
which they're proposing
yeah,
to
which we're
swap
in
that.
favor of,
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I have no additional comments, except what we heard today, that if you want to include as an additional condition about the HOA documents, to address the fertilizer.
Okay. All right, so we'll get to that. Dan?
I just wanted to amplify on one of the things Chuck was responding to, and that was the mixed bag we have of a centralized detention system and the separate ones for the lot. And jump in, Chuck, if I misspeak, but the thing that is sort of the situation you have here is we can do a centralized system to treat the road and the uphill lots, but the lots on the other side of the road, there's no practical way to get that runoff to the road system. So it had to be segregated, and the concept of doing the individual lots was really the only feasible way to address that increase in runoff. I did have a question though. You mentioned the HOA. What is the HOA going to be responsible for?
Well, you know, it's funny, I said that. I don't think it's actually gonna need to be an HOA because the road, with the intent, and your superintendent has agreed that the road can be dedicated to the town along with the stormwater. So it may only be, and I'll have to talk to the applicant's attorney about this, depending on what the commitment is on the landscaping, that may be the only other item that would require a commitment or an obligation on each of the lot owners to make sure they maintain. But other than that, as I said that, I thought to myself, we may not need one here, so.
So, yeah, I guess the other issue too is the, sort of like a common driveway arrangement there.
Yeah, that's gonna be between individual property owners.
I don't know if.
I mean,
attorney needs to
typically
see
that's
that
how
just
we
to
do
know
it.
what the conditions are and responsibilities and so
So
forth.
we're gonna need a maintenance type agreement as a condition also that benefits the town.
But that driveway is a driveway to private, between two property owners.
Oh,
That's, I think, if I'm not mistaken,
So it's
then he's
200.
referring to this coming up
and
here.
we typically, if that's what you're referring to, we typically do require, maintenance agreements between the lot owners that can then benefit the town too, that we have the right to enforce it.
Got it, okay. All right, so we'll have to work with you on what form that's gonna take and how we implement it.
Right, so we just think it's better to lay out all the obligations
Mhm.
for the owners so that they understand what
Yeah.
their obligations are and there's no issues going forward.
Understand?
Yeah, you know, and likewise to have that memorialized on the plat. to
That may be the
indicate
place
that
where we could do it all, if that's acceptable to the town, is the plat could include those obligations, describe them. Because that really is the only other formal mechanism that we need. Unless you have a,
But I think it's cleaner to, you know, call it out on the plat.
right, that's what I'm
But then
saying.
have an accompanying, you know,
I agree
easement
too.
agreement or, you know,
Because people-
so that everybody knows.
Exactly.
Because it would be too wordy to be on the plat to spell out all the.
Okay,
And also, when you go to sell the lots, they're gonna not pull up the subdivision plat, they're gonna pull up,
The
you know,
deeds.
that's gonna come up in their title report.
okay. So we can record easement agreements to the benefit of the town,
Right, that we have the ability to,
enforce. Okay,
and I could give you, work with the attorney on what we've done in the past.
okay.
Yeah, and I think in general, especially once you lost that other lot, everything really kind of I think a lot of things worked better.
We hope the board agrees.
I certainly agree with that, yes, much better. Just a quick question about those two houses and the agreements while we're talking about it. Can, my understanding was that the top one was accessed by a driveway on the other side. This one, the bottom one is accessed from the main road?
Yes.
So what are the easement?
It's a sewer,
they need?
it's a sewer
Oh,
water
for the
easement.
Sewer water.
There's a sewer and water easement that runs straight through. Again, because of the topography, we need to be on the low side of that lot. So we brought the sewer and water through at a common easement. So it's not a common driveway, it's a common easement for sewer and water.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see it, so it's not a common driveway.
It is not.
It's just a sewer, oh, so that's even simpler.
Yeah.
So-
No, the chairman's correct. This lot is accessed from Stormy Town. This lot is accessed from a single driveway, and this lot has its own driveway already. There is no common driveways.
Okay.
It's just a sewer and water easement.
So that lot's gonna be burdened and the back lot's benefited by that sewer easement, right?
This lot is burdened by the sewer easement to the benefit of this lot, yes.
Dan, anything else further from you?
No, I'm just, okay, now I see where the property line is now. Okay, yeah, no, we're good.
Jim?
The only comment that I have is on the sidewalk. I've been pretty set on it since we first started talking about it. I'm a former member of the club. I know there's pedestrian traffic on that street, and I just feel like it would be a really nice benefit to the neighborhood to have it on the main drag as opposed to the new street.
That's
Right,
what we
which
agreed
are
to.
doing.
Oh, I thought he was asking for the opposite.
No,
No, the waiver will be, your subdivision regulations
My
require it on the
apologies.
new
We
street.
gave in.
The waiver's gonna be for it.
We wore them down.
We gave
One.
in.
So it will be on Sterling County.
I'm on board.
There we go.
Caroline? Nothing?
Nothing.
Donna? You're on. Oh, can't hear you.
You're on
Yeah.
mute. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Now we
Yes.
can, yeah.
So I'm having a hard time hearing Kathy. So maybe the microphone could be closer for her.
Sorry.
That's the only person I'm having a hard time hearing. So first I'd like to thank the applicant for all the, those answers about the stormwater, system. That makes it a lot clearer, and I feel a lot better about that. So thank you for that. If you were to give out any information about fertilizer, it'd be really great if, Cooperative Extension has stuff on how to do lawns without fertilizer, so that would be actually the optimal to not use fertilizers. And I would opt to not move that driveway to save a Japanese maple. I mean, it doesn't, if that's a, you know, those are so prevalent here. It's almost like we're in Japan. So you really don't need to go through a lot of effort to save that tree. I did have some other questions though. In the tree report, the one thing that was mentioned was that the vines should be removed from the trees. Is that something that you will do? Like work on removing the invasive vines?
If the commission would like to make that a condition of our approval, I'm sure my client would be glad to do that.
Okay, that'd be great. And the other thing is there's no mention of like how these new trees are going to be protected from deer browse and from rubbing. Like, is that something that you would, because I saw, you know, and thank you for sending that, all the information about the tree bags and all that stuff. That was great. But is that something you would do also?
No, we're obligated to guarantee these trees for a certain period of time, and then each of the individual lot owners would be responsible after that. And I think what you're going to find is homeowners want their trees to live. So that's the obligation of your code, and that's what we've proposed.
Okay, because they're probably not going to live to maturity with the amount of deer that we have here. So that's.
I guess we're way more optimistic about it.
So I'm a realist. I deal with this all the time. Dead trees. They're just, the deer are just terrible unless you have deer fencing. They're just terrible. So I did have a comment on.
We've heard comments that the deer fencing is ugly. So there's a plus and minus to the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. So it's just great to get trees to like year 20, and then the deer aren't going to rub on them anymore. But anyway, so about the tree selection, my only comments, it is actually such a better selection of trees, so thank you for that. But it does have it's heavy on the oaks, which I love oaks, but it's really not a good idea to have so much of one species because of all the insects and diseases that are out there. So usually it's, you know, it's a 10, 20, 30 formula usually, which is 10% of one species, 20% of one genus, and no more than 10%, no more than 20% of one genus, and no more than 30% of the family. So you meet that on everything except the two oaks and the tilia, the linden tree. So it'd be great if you could reduce those three numbers and bring in a couple other species. And there's things that you're taking out, that you're removing, that are, you know, no longer going to be on that property, like northern catawba and, you know, there's a black gum, things like that could be put in there just to diversify a little bit more. So if you would consider that, which would be great.
So we spent a lot of time and effort trying to address the comments that we got from the board last month. I have an in-house staff of professional landscape architects who are involved in this process and who selected in response to the "we need more variety" comments.
Okay, so you could ask them if they are familiar with the 10, 20, 30 formula. They probably are, because that's pretty standard. And it's just, there's so many insects and disease now. It's like if you're gonna have mostly oaks on that property with oak wilt disease, it's just not gonna be good. So I just think it'd be great if you could change that. So I have my last comments I have are on the general landscaping page. The planting notes and details. So I would definitely be opposed, although we're not sure how long. I would, first of all, want these trees guaranteed for 5 years, not 1 year, because you get a drought in the second, third year, they're dying. So I think that would be standard to have it for 5 years. Also,
Just to check, if I'm not mistaken, your code does not say that.
right. So I'm asking for 5 years because 1 year, I just don't think it's enough. So I'm asking for that. Also, it says when the trees are being planted, so this is B, C, the letter B. I guess item number 10, C, that when the plants are being planted, that the burlap and wire caging is only pulled down to half. That should be removed. That you shouldn't have wire in the ground or burlap that's very slow to decompose. Also, another question that mentions stumps down on 11. We've never seen, like, when you're removing all these trees, are you digging them up with like a backhoe, or are you going to be leaving stumps like in the, not by the houses? I can definitely understand not wanting to have stumps by the houses, but because of erosion, will you be leaving some of the stumps?
I don't know that the owner has decided exactly how he wants to treat all of the trees coming down. I would guess that at a minimum, those that are in, the building envelopes, they would take them out.
Yes, that makes sense.
We've got some grading that's occurring, so I don't know, if you have a stump that's in a graded area, it would come out. If it's in a fill area, we would probably fill over the stump. There's a whole variety of site development, construction techniques that would have to be analyzed to figure that out. And we typically don't do that until we're under construction. And that's an owner-driven issue for the most part.
Okay, so the one thing that I would be concerned with is that one of the things you're removing is tree of heaven, and when you cut that baby, it like sends up 100 sprouts. So I don't know if that's that should be something that perhaps you could get some guidance on, so you're not having a forest of tree of heaven coming up. So I noted there's been other developments that have had reserve areas. So I guess I would ask Valerie about that, if that's something we can do in some of these spots, like that it could be considered a reserve area, so that it would have to be maintained, like not just the 1 year or the 5 years.
Yeah.
Is that a question for Valerie?
What reserve areas are you referring to? Creating reserve areas. But do you know what areas what you're looking to?
Well, the areas that are not, that would not be burdening the homeowners, but that like on the slope around the stream where the planting is.
So that's a regulated area. The owners are prohibited from doing any work there unless they come get a permit. So for all intents and purposes, that's already a protected area.
Right, but if the trees die after a year, they're not going to be obligated to replant, correct?
I think this goes back to whether there's going to be a homeowners association or not, right? Because if there's not going to be a homeowners association, then there's...
But this is going pretty far afield, to be honest with you. These are private lots, right? We've got 195 trees that we're planting all along this. I've got a 1 million square foot warehouse, and I'm not planting 195 trees. Right? These are individual lots. We meet your tree code. We will meet the criteria for the warranty. That's the obligation that the developer is making.
Could I ask just interject a quick question?
Right, that's what...
You're seeking the site plan approval.
Subdivision.
Subdivision, yeah. Is your client planning to build these houses, or are you going to sell the lots and then individuals will build?
Well, if this had been approved 6 months ago, they would have probably built them all. The market is changing quickly, and he doesn't have an answer to that question yet. Not sure whether they'll build or they'll sell, or maybe a combination.
Just a point of clarification, is there's a lot that has the stormwater system on it that's not gonna be owned by any of the lot owners, is that correct?
No.
Okay,
It's on the lot.
explain that.
So it's on this lot and covered by an easement. So there's no property here that's not on an individual lot. One lot is encumbered by a stormwater management basin, that'll be in an easement, and 2 lots are encumbered by a sewer and water easement.
So it's gonna be burdened, that lot's gonna be burdened, but who's it benefiting? Whose obligation is it to maintain that in the event it needs maintenance?
The town has agreed to maintain the roads and the stormwater management basin that goes with the road.
I
That's,
don't know if they agreed to do the stormwater management basin.
that was our understanding. If not, that's fine. That was our understanding.
No.
I thought that's what the memo
The only
said.
other mechanism to do that is through an HOA, because
Right.
otherwise, you know, it's part of the town road system.
For the
So,
stormwater.
the stormwater, so, but, I mean, I've seen that done as well, where, but, you know, now you create an HOA just for the stormwater.
So I think we need a decision from the town, right? Whether they're definitely gonna take on the stormwater maintenance.
Yeah, no, I mean, the truth is, it's been a while since we've done a subdivision where a road was dedicated with,
Yeah.
you know, we've been doing a lot of these little ones, so I don't think we've had to face up to that for some time.
So let's get clarification
Yeah,
on that,
we'll get
because we need to talk to the town board.
Sorry, Donna, for interrupting you.
That's all right.
Keep going.
No, that's no, I'm still having a hard time now hearing Valerie and Kathy, so maybe it's microphone placement, I don't know. So I just, again, on the middle of that page, it roll down the wire basket that should not happen. So I would just like to comment that the planting on the slope illustration is for a planting that's under 15% slope. So you stated before that you're not planting in any very steep slopes, but you know, so I just want that, I think that should be noted, that you're planning only to plant in a less than 15% slope,
That's not,
according to the diagram.
that's not what's shown on the landscape plan, and that's not what we're committed to. We'll modify the detail to reflect the slopes that we're planting on. We're planting on steeper than 15% slopes.
Okay, because that appears to me to be less than 15%. So, okay, because it would be good to see how.
The detail
that
doesn't get
illustration-
modified. The detail doesn't get modified. The slope changes.
Okay, so just so the rest of the planning board members know that illustration is showing a very moderate slope, the tree planted in a moderate slope.
Donna, are you saying that the planting detail they show is inappropriate to the slope?
Well, I'm just saying, it's that does not look so bad when you're planting a tree, you know, flat or moderate slope. It doesn't look so bad, but you know, when you start getting very steep, it becomes a difficult situation. But he says he does this all the time.
So I
I can go with
believe
that.
there's been a misrepresentation of what our drawing shows. So this detail here reference slopes that are greater than 3-on-1, which is a 33% slope. So this detail absolutely represents what we've been talking about. It represents a way to plant a tree on the steep slopes. That's all I can tell you.
All right, well, if it's only going to be a 1-year guarantee with the trees on the slope and 4-inch diameter trees, then I'm not really banking on these things living anyway. So that's my comments.
Okay.
Do you want to
That's
hear
it?
from Craig?
Yeah.
In response to-
Craig? Hello. Hi. Could we hear from you on your report, anything that hasn't already been addressed, or any questions or thoughts you have about the plan relative to your investigation?
Yeah, no, I've been listening to Donna, I know Donna. Let's say, Donna commented about the red maple. Yeah, they're very common, but it's a beautiful red maple. The Japanese maple is beautiful, so if it's gotta go, it's gotta go. But there was also a beech tree there. It's probably the only beech tree I saw in the whole property. I think it's number 1674, and it starts right on the slope as you go down into the ravine. I'm gonna call it a ravine. And when I looked at this, I said, boy, there's no reason why this can't stay, because again, it's the only beech tree and it's quite nice. So I don't see it in any construction area there, because it's on the edge of the slope.
Could you point it out to Mr. Fletcher?
Yeah, number 1674, caught my eye. And then,
It's a mature beech.
So if I may just
yeah.
comment, when I'm
Yeah, yeah.
asking for diversification, the beech tree would be a good addition.
Yeah, I
That's an
agree with,
example.
I agree with the diversification idea. If there's, I didn't look at the planting plan, but if there's too many
Oh, that's
oaks.
the one right in the middle, okay,
Where,
yeah.
is that it, 1674?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
In the middle.
Oh, so,
Yeah.
but it's not on the, it's not on the slope going down? It's
No,
on the
that's gonna
flat?
be built into
Oh.
a retention basin.
All right, well,
Yeah.
there you go. But as far as Donna says, with the species diversification, I agree with that, because there's a lot of diseases, or, you know, there's oak wilt, there's, oh my God, the diseases going around, and insect infestations. If you have too many of one species, it'll come through and just wipe it all out, you know? Look what's happened to our ash trees. So,
Mhm.
hopefully there's no ash trees on the planting list, okay?
No.
So,
But there's 79 oaks are being proposed.
yeah, I would try to break that up a little bit, and certainly different species of oaks, you know, white oak, red oak, black oak.
Which we have.
Yeah, so, you know, diversity is good. Evergreens, things like that.
Those were taboo.
Oh, the evergreens
We're
are
not
ten-
planting those.
Okay, well, I'm just.
We've been around this a few times already.
Yeah. So I don't know, what else you wanted to ask me? I know it's a development site, so you go in, you try to make suggestions. Oh, as far as the vines go, my comment in the letter about the vines was, if the trees that are remaining on the list is to at least sever the vines. It's very hard to remove vines from a tree.
Mhm.
You do more damage doing that than just sever it, let it die, let it fall to the ground, and do that. And also, the trees that do remain, they need to be protected with fencing, and I encourage mulch, 2 to 3 inches of mulch around the trees that are gonna remain, because when you remove the surrounding trees, that soil's gonna get baked like sunlight like never before in the life of that tree. So soil temperature's gonna go up unless you moderate it with some mulch. And a lot of times these construction sites, you know, they're under the gun to get the job done, somebody backs a backhoe into the tree, or they're running back and forth, or they're putting cement piles on top of the root system. So there's some nice trees there that are listed to be saved, and it just have to be guarded against the activity that's gonna go on, you know?
So part of our sediment erosion control plan, we fence off the disturbed areas to try and keep the errant bulldozer from going where he's not supposed to. I will not tell you it's foolproof,
Yeah.
but we have incorporated that as part of our design.
So,
And you have the information you need regarding getting a greater diversity. I know you've already come a long way, but this last bit, can you accommodate that change?
Well, I'll go back to my
If need be,
landscape
perhaps-
architects and
Yeah.
and try
Perhaps
and do
Greg
more.
would be able to interact with your landscape architect and make some suggestions?
I'm sure Donna knows a little bit more about.
Right, I didn't want to put Donna on the
Yeah,
spot for
yeah.
that, though.
Yeah,
But certainly Donna's suggestion should be taken to heart.
yeah. So,
Okay, great. You, just parenthetically almost, you mentioned that there were a number of trees that were worth saving for sawing.
oh, saw logs.
Saw logs.
Yeah. Well, that comes down to the clearing contractor, whoever they hire. You know, there's some beautiful trees in here, beautiful saw logs, and if they could be, rather than going through a chipper that can take a 20-inch diameter tree and chip it up and, you know, throwing the chips away,
Mhm.
try to get it milled. It's a way of recycling, and, you know, it's,
I've seen recycled
recycling.
trees with good saw logs used in the development itself,
mm,
and that can be made to be known, and people like that. You know, it's like,
yeah.
you know,
I mean, a job like this, they're gonna have a clearing crew in there with a harvester, it's gonna be a big time clearing job, so there's
Yeah.
gonna be a lot of activity, but if it's kind of stated up front, you know what, let's try to get a log truck in here, take some of these saw logs out.
can you at least make that
So-
suggestion?
Sure, we typically leave that up to our site contractor,
Yeah,
and he's allowed to look at the site and understand the value of the lumber. And these days, everybody knows what the value of the lumber is like.
Okay.
So our site contractors are very much interested in being able to do that when they can,
Mhm.
and we gain a
Okay.
benefit in the pricing, so we
Okay.
will absolutely make it known, we always do.
yeah.
Okay, so are you agreeing now to do the cutting of the vines?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll
and
add
what
that
about
note
the-
to our plans.
Great, and the removal of the dead trees that,
Yeah.
Craig?
We've already adjusted that.
Yeah, that was just a mistake, when they were doing inventory, they may have been in the wintertime, they did the inventory, and, you know, A dead tree in the winter looks like a live tree to some people,
Right, sure.
so it could have been a
Sure.
mistake that way. but-
And you make the labeling changes as per the species that
Yes.
were found?
Correct the list.
Some mistakes.
Yes.
Some mistakes, great.
Yep.
And we're gonna leave you're gonna take, we're not gonna make a change regarding that Japanese maple, as beautiful as it is.
Yeah, it's just a nice, but
If it's-
Don is
yeah.
right, they're very common, but
Yeah,
My client may decide to dig that one up
you take it home.
and take it home, so.
yeah, if you can save it.
It's
Or
recycled.
move it out to one of the lots where you can
That's
save it. so.
Recycle it, yeah.
Okay, so, most of the comments I was thinking of making myself have been covered, but I do want to, emphasize that the, fertilizer control plan is something that we're very much interested in, because this discharges directly to the Sing Sing Kill, which is Hudson River tributary, and in fact, both Ossinings are putting effort into, improving the ecological quality of the Sing Sing Kill. It's a very stressed system. So, can you look into that? I know there are Westchester County laws that prohibit phosphorus in fertilizer more than the state laws do. So if you can look into that.
I guess are we regulating something that's regulated?
No,
Okay.
I think we're asking for something more. I mean, you didn't mention the Westchester laws, you mentioned the state laws.
Right.
We want to make sure at the very least that the Westchester laws regarding it are strictly followed.
So, okay.
Okay?
So how do I do that?
Use zero phosphorus fertilizer.
And in what mechanism do we articulate that so that the lot owners know and that it can be enforced? I'm looking for you to tell me.
How
I mean,
can we do that?
We have to see if there's gonna be an HOA. If the town's gonna be taking over and that's part of the road system, that's gonna be dedicated to the road, there's not gonna be an HOA. So
Right.
really the only mechanism is to put it on the plat and, you know, you'd have to notify, you know, on your honor system that you'll let the owners know, or, you know, it could be a condition in their deed. That could be another way to do it.
The only thing about
Yeah, I
carrying a
know.
condition like that in the deed is that becomes very burdensome to lot owners and the history of the deed. So I don't think my client would agree to that. Again, I think we're regulating regulations. The stormwater management system that we've designed has included in it what's called water quality treatment. So there's pre-treatment mechanisms that are incorporated into these designs. And the purpose of those, and the reason DEC enacted
What's
those.
the pretreatment here?
So there's a unit here that is a pre-treatment unit. The catch basins have sumps, and the design of the infiltration basin is designed to deal with water quality.
I think that's usually referring to suspended solids, but not,
So if you read the DEC guidance, they wrap these pollutants all together, because what happens is the phosphorus and the nitrogen tend to stay in the stormwater management basin. So that's why we do infiltration. So there's a component to this stormwater system that's designed for water quality purposes. The first, I'm sure you've heard this, the first 1 inch of runoff carries 90% of the pollutants. That's what goes into the system. There's an infiltration practice, so it stays on the property. That's why the DEC has changed and now requires what they call runoff reduction volume. They want infiltration to occur on the site into the ground. So there are mechanisms as part of this that inherently deal with water quality from stormwater runoff.
okay, so I guess at this point, I would just ask you to commit to the Westchester County
Absolutely.
laws regarding it.
Absolutely. And we'd be glad to make sure that the lot owners know that. If there's a note on the plat, if there's not an HOA and there's a note on the plat, we can do that. We'll do however you want to make sure they understand it.
Well, let's put a note on the plat at the
Okay.
very least. then.
All right.
Okay. Any other comments from the board or the?
I think we use the public first,
Right,
if
okay.
anybody's here.
Why don't, so we've got public here potentially, and we've got public in person and public on Zoom. So why don't we take the public in person first? So if anyone in the room would like to speak to this application, speak up now. Seeing no one. Anyone on Zoom that would like to speak to this application, please identify yourself.
Or
speak up.
you could use your hand on the screen, and then we can unmute you so you could speak. This is for 39 Stormy Town Road.
Don't see anybody. Going once, going twice. Okay, I think we've got it then. Are there any further comments from the consultants from the board? No? Okay, where do we stand then with what this was a public hearing. Are we continuing the public hearing?
I would recommend continuing the public hearing for 1 more month so we can get an answer on especially on the clarification of the road dedication and stormwater management system. And then I think after that, and this way the applicant can also update the plans and maybe add some of those notes. And then that way, at that point in time, you'll have a more complete package, and then we'll have a better sense of what we're dealing with the road dedication and stormwater management system.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is the 3rd month that there's been no public input. I understand that there's an issue open, but doesn't seem practical or necessary to keep the public hearing open. I mean, these are minor notes that we're adding to a plan. The most major thing is clarifying this easement, which we've already committed to. It's just a mechanism how it gets applied.
But it doesn't hurt either, and it gives people a chance.
Okay.
So, let's see, and in addition, the Environmental Advisory Council is going to be walking the site this coming Saturday.
Correct.
And I think they're particularly interested in these questions regarding the retention system, which you have answered quite well. Thank you for that. And so we'll get a report from them by next meeting as well. So what date should we schedule that for?
It's August 18th is our next meeting.
August 18th. Okay. We appreciate your patience. We know this has been going on for a long time.
We need a motion.
Okay.
Just one question, how do we resolve the issue of the easement? How does that get, so I guess what I'm trying to understand is coming next month, the hopes is that we've dealt with these handful of comments and that the board would be in position to take a vote on final approval.
My sense is that might be right. Does that sound
Right,
reasonable?
we should
if
be able to get an answer quickly on
Okay.
from the town on the issue with the road dedication.
Whatever it is, it is. I mean,
Right.
we were under the impression from an email I saw back when you walked the road with the superintendent that talked to this issue. So that's why we were under that assumption. And if it wasn't correct, it's okay. I just need to know, otherwise we would have had this worked out. So I'm just trying to get all my I's dotted and T's crossed so that next month we can close a public hearing and ask the board to vote.
That all sound good to you also regarding?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's, you know, the highway superintendent and the town board need to weigh in on it. I don't think the highway superintendent had an objection, you know, and it was, you know, we've kind of got a better system out there now with the open infiltration basin. You know, it's a lot easier to maintain for the town, but, you know, it's really a policy issue on these practices, whether we want to be responsible for them or not.
So this has to go before the town board then?
I'll reach out to the town supervisor,
Okay.
and then we'll see where they stand on
Okay. So we'll be in touch.
Yep.
So there are no further comments. Do I have a motion to close this public hearing for now? Continue, sorry.
Almost.
Closely, we're talking about it tonight, so we will continue the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Donna, how do you vote?
Yes.
How do you vote, Carolyn?
Yes.
Do you vote, Jim?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. And do I need to get a motion to stop talking about this one tonight?
No.
Or no?
Thank
Thank you.
Process.
I will leave the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Mark Seiden, 49 Croton Dam Road. It's an architectural review site plan amendment, and it's a public hearing. Hi, Mark.
Hello, back for
welcome
the
back.
last time I'm open.
We'll see. We hope. Would you like to make a presentation.
Sure. So I had sent, and I know all this was online, I summarized all the changes that we wanted to do for the property based on what was previously approved, and the final changes that we're looking to make to the outside structures. So I did a synopsis just on the first page with a lot of backup information. So basically, the main one is really to add a second floor hallway onto the first floor hallway that is already now pre-existing and approved, but put on a second floor hallway to go from the main house to the second floor recreation room structure. I know when we had done plans, you guys wanted me to kind of redo the plans and write down what was already approved and what was proposed, which is what I did do on the backup information. So I'll go through these first, and then we can just go through the supplemental pages, if that's okay. We wanted to add 5 windows. The windows that we actually wanted to use are all windows that were previously on the detached garage. So when we took the roof off and took the windows out of the pre-existing walls, I just hated throwing them out. They were perfectly good windows. Did not want to make the waste. So we found really nice locations to add those 5 windows, which again I'll show you on the plan. One is actually in the first floor hallway, where we before we put in even the first hallway, hallway from the house to the garage, there was a window there. We had taken that window out on the original plan. We now like to put that window literally back in the same location, just on the hallway wall, instead of the original house wall, which I guess is 36 or 40 inches wider. That's it, away. And the other ones are to put on the second floor hallway, which is what we're looking to add. And the last one is to put, I had one small window left, so I wanted to put that in the unfinished storage area, mostly to give the unfinished storage area some extra light and ventilation. But since it is unfinished storage on the first floor, I'm assuming those lights would rarely be turned on, and even if they were, my neighbors would practically not see the light because I have all those now pretty close to 8 to 10 foot pines that I had planted about 3 or 4 years ago. For the rear end of elevation, we already had an approved window in the rear elevation. My wife has requested to change that window to a door, and then add a wagon ramp, because her garden is literally right behind that rear elevation. So this way she can give all her gardening supplies there and easily just kind of bring them down. That can easily actually be seen on the survey when I show that. We just want to create a little larger steps for the already approved rear door. We just thought the steps that were on the original plan were small and dangerous, so we just wanted to make them larger, really more for safety. And then relocate an already approved window to another section of the first floor, because if we do get permission to change the window to a door, I now have an extra window that I already bought, so we just want to put another location on that rear elevation. Number 4, change from barn style to barn style vertical siding to actually brick. So I know that last month I had said siding, and then Valerie said, could you please put all your changes on one thing and get it all together, and we did. But we actually finally found, it took about 3 months, but we actually found brick that pretty much closely matches the brick that I currently have in the house. And Donna had asked if I would give some more close-up shots of the brick, because my original photos really didn't show that the house was brick, so I took some very close shots. That should probably be on the second page if you just want to scroll to the second page.
That doesn't, there's only one page for some reason.
Oh, really?
Let me see if we can get.
Okay. But in your packets, it's the,
This one?
nope, that's not, no,
This one?
that's the one.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah. So the first picture is actually the original brick that's there. The second and third picture, again, my camera is not a high-resolution camera, so it just kind of showed you that my house is pretty much, it's not pretty much, it's all brick on all the sides. But that first picture is a close-up of the brick. The bottom two, the brick that has the mortar is some brick that we had already removed when we were putting in the first floor hallway, so you can see what color that is. And the new brick is pretty close to spot on. So I put those two bricks there, and then we actually matched the mortar. That's what I was showing there. So that's why we wanted to change the barn-style vertical that we were going to do on the garage, that we actually want to put brick on the front side and the patio side, which is basically the elevations that 99.9% of the people are going to see when they're at my house. And then we wanted to put a horizontal clapboard on the rear part of the property, and on the right side of the property, which abuts my bushes and my neighbors, which pretty much no one sees. And we would actually paint that cedar siding pretty much a red earth tone color to pretty much match the brick as much as we can. And then last thing is change the garage doors from barn style to carriage style, which are very, very similar. The biggest thing that I could see the differential between the two doors was barn style has an X in the front of it, and the carriage style, you don't have an X in the front of it. Other than that, the doors are pretty much identical. So that was really the changes that we wanted to make to the garage addition. So if you just kind of want to go through the pages. So the first page, again, was my synopsis. The second page is the brick. The third page, I will show you, is definitely a little bit of a rudimentary 3-dimension. I know that you guys had asked if my architect would do.
I had to laugh when
Yeah, I know. I barely, and I know Sandy could probably even attest to this, I barely got my initial drawings there on time. That on the last day before I had to do this, my architect sent Sandy like 4 different versions because they kept being late. And do a 3D, the man very politely pretty much laughed at me. So I did the best I can. I went out and I took a picture, and then I know this is rudimentary, but I will tell you I'm a real estate agent. I am not a desktop publicist. So I did the best I can just so you could kind of see how the second floor would lay out. Everything that is white on that top drawing is just where the new windows would be. But the reason why I really wanted you to see this is because I really wanted you to see that this whole garage structure area where my house is, is almost like a driveway courtyard area. So it's not like those windows would be pretty much right on my property line staring at my neighbors. These are really set back, kind of like in a courtyard. So that's why I kind of gave you these 2 pictures so you really could see how far back my house was. But a little bit of a far distance from the official architect 3D 45-degree drawing that you want, but it's the best I could get because you can't get an architect get you what you want unless you give them 4 months notice. So I just did the best that I could. The next pages are pretty much the same things that I sent you last month, just so you could kind of see, you know, the windows that are being impacted. So on that next page, which has the green circles, those are the windows that were currently on the house, and we're actually looking just to take those windows and just literally bring them to the exact same location just on the hallway. The picture on the right shows where the hallway would go into the roof line of the second floor. And I have 2 pictures of that. Again, these were the same ones that I submitted last week, but I just wanted to give you the pictures. Again, the pictures of me standing in the exact location where the windows are going to be. This is the same as last month, but I put them into this because you guys wanted one package. And then what I did create as per request is for the architect plans, I gave you what was already prior approved and then the change of what would be the proposed approval. So if you see that on the right elevation, which is really from the which is actually from my neighbor and driveway side. Unfortunately, they don't do these 45-degree. They only do these like 90. So if you had that 45-degree view, you'd actually see my little rudimentary design of how everything impacted. That's how I kind of gave you that. But as you can see, it's just putting a second floor on the left side hallway part. That shows on the right elevation. The left elevation, again, shows you the same thing. If you look at the right double glass door with the gable, you'll actually see that there's now like just a second floor hallway that goes into the second floor. Again, keeping the gable, and then obviously adding a window above it. That's window 4 of the old windows that I had, if I count correctly. The next page that I have is the survey. I really wanted to see where the survey was so you could really see kind of where my garden attaches to the house, and that's why my wife really wanted me to put a ramp there in the back. But the survey just kind of shows you that from the top, the changes that I'm actually asking to make to put a second floor in that hallway does not impact the bird's eye view 1 inch at all. It's literally just putting a second floor and putting pretty much almost the same roof on the second floor than the first floor. So I gave you 3 surveys because I wanted to see the prior approved one. I wanted to see an unmarked version of the proposed one. And then there's the proposed one that actually has the drawing on it. You can actually see what I was looking to add. It shows you the 2 sides that I'm looking to put on for the cedar siding. It shows you the 2 sides I'm looking to do for brick. And then it shows you the original structure of the house, which is brick on all 4 sides, period. So I'm actually keeping the integrity of what my house looked like even more now than what I had even proposed in the past. And now I'm just kind of going elevation by elevation. Prior approved garage level plan, so you could see that. Unmarked proposed, and then the exact same proposed garage plan, but I marked out where the changes were of adding windows, adding proposed wider stairs, and adding the proposed door with the ramp to the property for my wife's gardening so she can bring a wheelbarrow down easily. Again, next page, recreation level, second floor level, again, prior approved. Unmarked proposed, so you can see things without all my drawings on it. And the last one, the drawings would show you exactly what we're looking to do. Put that little second floor on, add those 3 windows, which again are recycled windows from the previous garage. I'm exhausted. And then the last thing is, last couple of pages again, prior approved front elevation, prior approved rear elevation, and the same thing proposed front and rear elevation unmarked, and proposed front and rear elevation all marked up, because I really wanted you to see the difference in the garage doors, the difference of the facade. That's really that all that is just showing that it's now all brick and got rid of the X in the garage doors. And then in the proposed rear elevation, showing you the door instead of a window, the ramp, and the relocated window. Again, what we're just doing for the facade for brick and the facade for the horizontal clapboard. And and one more, the left elevation. Can't leave out the left elevation, they won't feel good. So again, 2 pages of prior approved, 2 pages of unmarked proposed, and then my markup of what the left elevation would look like.
Okay.
Holy
Do the
moly, system
consultants
bully.
have any comments?
No, I do not.
No. Dan? No. Does any member of the board have comments?
I mean, I think it's consistent with the previous approval. I mean,
Right.
we're pretty much here because of the quantity of changes that have
Right.
taken place since the
Right.
original approval. So that being said, no more changes, right?
No, oh, please.
All right.
The other thing that I want to go through is the shed bar, because I wanted to finalize those. On the last things, we were doing vertical siding, but now since we were doing the brick and the horizontal clapboard on the garage addition, we just decided for it to be very consistent. So we're looking to do horizontal clapboard on that shed bar to kind of match the other one, but we're still going to do the green paint. And we're still unsure whether we're doing thatched roof or asphalt top, but I think last meeting you guys said that's okay, as long as it passed John Hamilton and building code. So that will still absolutely be. But on this one, that was the only thing we were looking to do, is change from vertical siding to horizontal clapboard, and I will never be here again on this project. Promise.
Any other comments from the board? Caroline?
No.
Donna?
Looks good.
Okay. I have one question about the thatched roof.
Mhm.
Are you shooting for sort of like a tropical style or more of like a British Isles style? Very different.
Probably a Polynesian style, I guess that's right. But as more and more we do that, I'm not really sure if we're going to do it, but I still would like to retain the right as long as it passed all building code and fire codes and all those codes.
Okay. The brick was the big surprise for us,
Right.
because we expected, you were asking for one change, but then it
Right.
was.
Well, we
a
finally,
second
and the
double
reason why I
change.
changed,
Yeah.
and maybe it was just, the way divine intervention, is that we finally found the right brick. It took about 6 brick people to find the right shade that it just wouldn't look terrible putting new brick next to the old brick. So it was actually as not happy as I was last week. It was last month. It was pretty actually fortuitous because we found the brick.
Okay, so I think we can make a motion to close the public hearing.
Are any of the neighbors here?
Is there-
Oh,
yeah.
thank you, yes.
Is there anyone on
Thanks.
Zoom that would like to speak on this matter? It's 49 Croton Dam Road, Architectural Review Board approval.
Not hearing any. Is there anyone in the audience here who would like to speak to this? Okay, and do we have a second room where we were holding anyone?
Is anybody in there?
There was a,
Oh, but that would be just the applicants.
oh,
If they're
okay,
not
okay.
applicant.
So that's a likely no, but she's checking. Yeah. Okay, all right. So,
No
not
one's there.
getting any comments, I think we're ready for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
How do you vote, Donna?
I agree.
Jim?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
And I agree as well. And I guess I'm looking for a motion then to approve the changes?
Yeah, and I provided the board a draft resolution for
Ah,
the amendments
yes.
to the proposed changes.
Okay. I assume everyone's read the resolution I have. Donna, have you read that resolution? I think it's sort of not-
Excuse me?
Yes, right,
Thank you.
yeah, okay. Have you had a chance to read the resolution for approving these changes?
We just got them today.
No, I sent it out on Monday.
Is it
Oh,
something?
then I think I did read them. Look at it really quickly.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
All right, motion to approve,
So moved.
Second.
okay? And Donna, how do you vote to approve the resolution?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So I think that's it, is that right, Valerie and Kathy?
Yeah.
So,
Do I get to end with a hooray?
yes, a hooray.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Enjoy,
Thank you.
beautiful house.
Thank you. Come visit.
Okay. Once you get the tiki bar going.
Exactly. You'll never leave after that. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
So the next item on the agenda, if I can find my copy of the agenda. I lost it in the
540
shuffle.
North State Road.
It's 540 North State
State
Road.
Road.
Very good. Do we have the applicants? There we go.
Good evening, Clayton Livingston for Casinathan family for 540 North State Road. I think you all have copies of this. This is
Charles May.
Charles May, who's the project engineer, landscape designer, and traffic analysis. So we had gotten some comments back from Valerie. Do I need to introduce the project? Is everybody familiar with the project?
For the audience online, why don't you do a quick
So I'll introduce the project. 540 North State Road is a 8,000 square foot office building with 5 tenants. And what we are proposing tonight is a modification to the existing parking area. The existing parking area provides for 27 cars, or by town code, we are required to have 28, and we are proposing 34. Okay, so you should all have a copy of that. 540 North State Road is the two-story building, for those of you that don't remember, that has the poles in front of it that you drive underneath, across from the car detailing place. Okay. So we had some comments, I guess it came back from you, or it came back from Valerie in regards to the project. The first one was under outstanding plan comments. The parking, the applicant will meet the minimum parking requirements. However, the parking calculation on the cover sheet needs to be updated to reflect the current parking spaces being provided. So it shows on the cover sheet that the total provided spaces is 34. All right? Okay. And then that the parking lot layout meets all ADA requirements. There is an ADA parking space that currently exists under the overhang. That parking space is not going to be modified or changed. And the details of that parking space are on the detail page, SD. So it shows the detail for the handicap space with the signage and the sizes and setbacks. In B, it says, please show the parking stall dimensions on the site plan. The parking stall dimensions are shown as 9 feet by 18 feet, and that's referred to as SD1 on the plan. This is the existing plan, and this is the current plan, so where it shows the SD1, that shows for the size of the park, that shows for the reference here to SD1 where it shows the size of the parking space. Okay? It asks for, requires that parking areas with at least 20 spaces provide site access for 2 10-foot lanes. The site plan provides the measurements for each curb cut, one of which is currently less than 20 feet. The applicant is not proposing to alter the existing parking area curb cuts. However, the applicant is proposing one-way internal circulation of the parking area with a minimum drive aisle of 20 feet. It's recommended the building inspector review the proposed access. Okay, so this is the entrance from North State Road, and this is the exit from Ryder to Ryder Avenue. Currently, the traffic, or the parking area, has parallel parking along North State Road. It has 6 spaces here, 5 spaces here, and 10 across here. And what we're proposing to change there is that we have 3 spaces here along the building, 8 spaces here, just 5 spaces here, take out these middle ones, and then put 9 spaces here. We are proposing the 20-foot distance in between. What we are requesting, though, is that we are able to modify the entrance and the exit down to 12 feet. And that's really for traffic safety. If any of you have ever been in this parking lot and tried to turn out onto North State Road, it is not a very safe place to try and turn out onto North State Road if you're trying to make a left-hand turn. And also on this road here, coming out, so we're proposing that this one also be 12 feet on this side as well. And that is really to restrict and impede the flow of traffic. What we're proposing is to put signage on both sides of the entrance that say one way facing North State Road and do not exit on the back side, on both sides. We're proposing to put a nice big white arrow here on the entrance, a nice big white arrow here, a big white arrow here, and a big white arrow going out the exit over here, with similar signage here saying exit only, and then on the outside saying do not enter. Okay, so we want to kind of dictate to not only the public but also the people that use the units that the parking will now be restricted to one way. And doing that, people will see that it's more difficult to get in, and they will not try to get out when somebody else pulls out. We were actually there this afternoon having a discussion about the stormwater, and we were over in this corner here, and somebody pulled out from underneath here and tried to go that way to go out, and we waved them in the other direction. So that's what we're here to discuss. It says the applicant is not proposing to make any additional changes to the existing drainage, and the town engineer is reviewing the existing drainage plan and will identify any necessary upgrades. Dan has spoken with our engineer, and they have talked about the current drainage here, adding in another drainage here, and then this drainage over here, and having them have tanks where the water from the driveway would collect any sediment, 1,000-gallon tank. The sediment would sink to the bottom, and any water would run off. Currently, these just have pipes that go out the back and go out into the stream behind it.
Do you have those specified, the details on?
We don't have that actually specified yet.
Okay.
Okay, that's just come to light this week, Dan and the engineer have been able to meet.
Okay, that's of critical importance
Yep.
because of the waterway
Right.
right behind the
Right.
building. Yeah,
In addition, the downspouts on the back side of the building, as you can see, we really only have about 4 feet from the back of the building to the property line, and the stream actually runs along the property line. So the stream is on the neighbor's property, but where our downspouts come down, they are now discharging here, and what we're proposing is to tie the downspouts in and have them all discharge into this basin over here. Okay?
Dan, any, you'd like to speak to
Yeah,
your memo? And
Yeah, I'll
those?
just run through the comments
Great.
quickly. So they touched on the one thing that this is what the DEC would consider a redevelopment project. So we want to, it's not treated as a full-blown new disturbance. There is impervious area there. There's really very little change to it, but there is an opportunity to provide some treatment which wasn't originally there. So I'll be working with the applicant to touch on that. We wanted to add a level spreader for the sump pump discharge. I think this issue came up last time, and subsequent to that, I had an opportunity to inspect the property. So there is a sump pump in the basement. It's really just collecting groundwater.
You saw the sump pump?
Yeah, and there's really,
Okay.
so there really should be no contamination. So,
Okay, good.
and we certainly don't want them putting it into the sanitary sewer, so
Right.
this would be the best solution there. And as Valerie touched on, that we show the wetlands flagging on the plan, and the location of the water course. I guess it's slightly off-site, but we still don't see where it is. So that was an issue I know the board was concerned with. And then finally, again, we touched on it, the modifications to the North State Road driveway, that if we're modifying, they'll be doing, I guess you're gonna put granite curbs in.
We're gonna put the Belgian block around the, that shows here on the final page as well. It shows the detail for the Belgian block that will be going around the parking area. And of course, as part of anything that we do to the entrance and exit, we would be glad to accommodate any additional handicapped ramps that have to be put in there, and put the little rumble strip
Right,
things on the, if that's
yeah.
necessary in this municipality.
We're closing it up.
Yeah, we have no problem
We've touched
doing
it, we need to put it back
Yeah, yeah.
together
Yep.
in ADA compliance.
Yep. Oh, and then the other thing that you had asked for is the car stops, which would be 30 inches back from the front of the bump of the front of the parking space. And I measured, and I have a measurement here on my iPad where I put a tape down in front of my Mercedes SUV, and at 30 inches, I'm about a foot out in front of, 30 inches from my tire, not from where my tire would stop on a thing like this, but from underneath where my tire is. 30 inches puts me 12 inches out in front of my license plate.
Okay, and the main reason we brought that out last time was because of the proximity of the parking spaces to the sidewalk. It was a little ambiguous on the prior plan we had, so I just wanted to ensure that we didn't have cars front of cars spilling over into the traveled way on the sidewalk. So the wheel stops would ensure that didn't happen.
That makes sense. Okay, comments from consultants?
No, he based, the applicant reviewed my comments.
Anything from the board?
Can you comment on the landscaping along the street front?
Sure, absolutely. The landscaping along the street front is shown here on this plan, and it is spoken to. Here is the planting detail of how the shrub planting is going to be, the tree planting is going to be, and the detail for seeding. It's all here spelled out. Mr. May is a landscape designer, so he has reviewed the native species plant schedule that was given to us, chosen some plants that are listed here on the front, right? So I was, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I was on the page, right down here. So all the plants are listed here, and as well as the detail for the seating. And you can see that there's the seating around the fence area here, there's seating around here, there's bushes here, bushes here, bushes here, bushes here, bushes here, bushes here, existing trees over here, and then more bushes around here and trees.
Carolyn, any thoughts, comments? No. Donna? Comments?
Yeah, yes, I do have a few comments on this. So, first of all, when you were looking at the wetland code, were you looking at the town of Austening's wetland code for the delineation? Because it said here.
We have an environmental engineer that did the wetland.
It said village somewhere, so I didn't know if you had looked at the village as opposed to the town. So that was my question. I mean, I don't know that it impacts anything, because it'd be a 50-foot setback, but I don't know that would impact anything particularly. Except it would be really great if you didn't use fertilizer, since you're right next to a stream and you're proposing grass. So that definitely would be problematic.
Yeah, we're not proposing any fertilizer.
So the planting plan, so you have just the small shrubs by the building are the native ones, the rest are not, but the small shrubs in the front, which are a Chinese shrub, is actually probably the only thing that's going to grow there, because it's such a tough situation. So that I certainly have no objection to that.
Yeah, no, that's what we made.
And it's short, so you're not, before what you were proposing was going to be kind of looking like a wall. So I like that change. Certainly, I do question putting the pin oak where and I also didn't understand it. You said you're going to put 2 pin oaks. I only see 1. You're proposing 1, right?
No, 2.
Oh, where's the second one?
Right here.
It's hard to read these. So I see 1 by the back, right by the building, and where's the other one?
Right.
I see that one. Where's?
These 2 right here.
Oh, okay. So that's actually a very large tree, and it seems like it's really close to the building. So
They're
they get like 60 feet wide, so it seems pretty close to the building to put such a large tree. But that's my one comment. My other comment is the Asian flowering crab tree is basically what they had there, and it didn't do well because there's a lot of problems with those trees right now. So and it says 1, but it appears to me like you have, it's 7. It's a 7 that looks like a 1. Okay, I got it. That would be great if you could find something else, even if you were going to just put a couple of those and then put something else also, so it's not a wall of that very frilly ornamental tree. because it is, we're doing a comprehensive plan now, and we're trying to really improve the appearance of North State Road. So this will definitely not blend in with the rest of the intention. So that's my comment with those. So on that page, on the top corner there, on the left corner, you are proposing here that you're going to put super phosphorus in. So I would hope that you would take that out. Maybe that was an oversight. Because phosphorus is really not, we have a Westchester law that's trying to, that you're not supposed to use phosphorus because of the damage to the waterways. So could that be eliminated?
Absolutely.
Great, okay. And also, like with the previous applicant tonight, the burlap and wire cages should be removed. So that these planting recommendations just seem to be outdated, and I'm not really sure where you got them from. So we would not use anti-desiccant spray anymore. No fertilizers, no manure, no peat moss. You know, these just seem to be very outdated recommendations. And then my other, comment would be that 1 year is not enough, but you are, I would assume in this kind of business that it would be desired to keep them alive. They're going to be right in front of your project. So that I think that's my own. Yeah, that's it. So I would just ask if you could figure out if the pin oak, if there's something that's going to fit better there. That's the way that tree is going to grow is you're going to have to keep chopping the branches off. So it's going to become unattractive at some point. It's a great tree, excellent choice, but I just don't think it's going to work in that situation. And then the flowering crowd, if you could at least mix it up or just get something else in there.
Okay.
And then change if you could relook over your general notes for the planting and then just bring them into contemporary practices would be great.
So noted, thank you.
So, yeah, and then thank you for looking into the stormwater, because that was a huge concern of mine. So that sounds like a really good plan. With Dan's blessing, I think that's a great thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it, Donna?
I think so.
Okay. I have a couple of comments. So just to reiterate that the survey should show where the wetland flagging was. And if you could, I didn't see it on there anyway.
Well, we just put it on top.
Oh, you just put it on
We just
tonight.
got the comments a couple of days ago.
Oh,
It was
okay,
down here
okay.
this afternoon.
And it would be good if you could show the extent of the wetland that you can get from, other records. Would that be possible?
Sure.
Okay.
With the environmental mapping.
Yeah, there's a map that you actually, there's a filed map 3557 that might, show it. You could probably just get
Okay.
that, right off the Westchester County system. That would be useful to see. And let's see, you speak about do not enter signs to prevent the backward flow of traffic.
Yeah.
My only concern about, I agree with that, but my only concern is that how can that be made to look attractive for the Ryder Avenue, from viewing from Ryder Avenue? Can it be discreet and reasonably attractive? That's my concern.
Okay. We'll make a sign detail.
Okay.
We'll get a sign detail from the sign guy down the street.
Okay.
We've already spoken to him about that, so he's just waiting for us to give him the direction, and
Okay.
we can make something not huge or not stuck in with wire stakes.
Right.
Something
right.
that's durable, but something that is in keeping with the town.
Doesn't
Right.
have to be New York State DOT. Doesn't have to be New York State
Right.
DOTs. That's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
It'll be
I understand.
more personal.
Exactly. yeah, since Ryder Avenue is sort of transition between commercial into residential, it'd be nice to tone that down a
Yeah,
little
we
bit.
were,
so.
we were envisioning something about waist high, you know, that, at where the signs were about 2 feet by 3 feet, something like that. Does that work for you?
That sounds big to me.
That sounds big to you? Okay.
I don't know, does anyone know?
How about 2 by 2?
Talk to your sign designer.
Okay.
Tell them what my concern is, and
Yeah.
and you guys figure it out.
No problem.
But knowing that concern, just so that it, you know.
I think that
Looks okay for the
the
neighborhood.
big white arrows are gonna be the big,
I think,
the
yeah.
big, you know, deciding factor.
I agree
Hopefully.
that people, if they miss that, then, yeah, they
We can't do much about it.
can't do much about it.
We can put some forks in there so it pops our tires.
Ah, okay, you could. I wasn't sure what your plan was for the line of trees in the back. I think it's 8 spots. Are you're keeping those trees?
These are existing.
No, over on the left. Sorry, the top, there, the left of the building?
This?
No,
To
left.
the left. To the north of the building, northeast line of parking spots. Yeah,
These here?
so there's a line of trees right now. What are your plans?
Very few of those trees are on our property. What's on our,
Oh.
we have a chain link fence there with a stone wall, and our property literally goes about 2 feet beyond the chain link
The
fence.
trees are, if I remember correctly, they're on the parking lot side of the chain link fence.
Nothing is on the parking lot side of the chain link fence.
No?
There's
Okay.
no trees on that.
No, there's no trees on this elevation of the property. All the trees sit down in the stream bed behind the stone wall.
Okay, maybe I'm mistaken then.
The chain link fence, it just goes right along
You can go
the
to Google
top of the stone wall there.
You can go to Google Earth and you can see it.
Okay. Well, I'll take your word for it, and.
I have pictures on the iPad I can show you.
Yeah, it'd be
that
great if
helps.
you have it right
Yep.
there. Just to convince me. I'm sure you're right, you know your property. I went by there last week, and I thought I saw that. but- While you're looking for that.
Yeah, this could take a while, so go ahead.
Okay. So it's not within the, what we're, within the purview of this application, but I was wondering what your plans were for any changes to the facade of the building, or cleaning it, for instance. It's a little, it's a little
That,
past its
our
prime.
parking lot right now is our primary concern because the existing parking lot does not meet town code. The
Mhm.
existing parking
Okay.
lot where you have these parking spaces where they are really not usable because you can't really back out of these spaces properly
Right,
over
it's
here.
very tight, yeah.
We only have 27 spaces here.
Mhm.
We're required to have 28 by town
Mhm.
code. We now have 5 tenants, the building is fully occupied. If we have any guests, people are parking on top of each other.
Right, I understand
So-
the parking situation.
So our parking
Yeah.
situation is our first priority.
Mhm.
After a recent rain, the roof is our second priority. So the roof estimates are coming in between $80,000 and $120,000, and we're, about ready to stick a gun in our mouths. Then we're gonna get to the outside of the building, and we'll probably be talking to you again about what we decide to do there. It's currently an EFIS material on the outside, which is the styrofoam with the concrete on the outside of it. Okay, and so.
It's pretty badly streaked.
Yeah, it's reached the end of its life expectancy, so we have some contractors. There's none in New York that do that anymore. There's one in New Jersey that does it. So we're having him come in and give us his recommendations. Whether we scrape it all off and redo it, whether we try and fix it, or whether we put something else over it, we'll probably be seeing you guys again.
Okay,
Okay.
to be determined.
Yep. If that's necessary for us to see you, I mean, if
Yeah,
we.
it may not be.
Yeah, if we should be able to just side our own building, and, if we decide to go vinyl or brick or, concrete block, we'll, do that with the building department.
So Jim had brought something up last time about where the garbage receptacles are, that like about putting a plant there. And I noticed now didn't happen, but it's like a couple signs are there. So is that something that could happen? Just to screen that a little bit?
Can we
And also,
put some-
is the chain link fence staying, or are you gonna put a better looking fence?
For right now, the chain link fence is really the most safest way of protecting from having anybody go over that wall. It's the most sturdy and the most effective for keeping children, pets, or cars from going over that stone wall there. Without, completely putting a stone wall that just comes up and blocks out all the green. So if we kind of chose that so that you could see the greenery through it of the property that's not ours.
Can we screen it with some vegetation?
Not really. The parking lot goes right up to it now, and the edge of the stone wall is the chain link fence, and we only own another foot or 2 feet past that.
Yeah, my concern at the
It
time.
looks really industrial. Like it's definitely not attractive. That chain link fence is definitely not attractive. And then looking at the garbage, as Jim pointed out, is less than attractive also.
Would it be preferable if we wove green through it or something like that, or what are you proposing? Any suggestions?
Well, my suggestion would be not to have a chain link fence, so I don't know. I don't know what the rest of the board feels about that.
And speaking for myself, I think chain link fences generally look horrible. They can be replaced with something similar that doesn't look as bad to my eye anyway, which is a rectangular. It's a continuous metal fencing, but with rectangular, and you see it in Europe a lot, but it's becoming more popular here. And it has sort of a designer feel to it. That would satisfy the safety concerns you mentioned, but look better. That's one suggestion.
Usually,
Yeah.
That sounds like a good suggestion.
usually the color has, we use black a lot, black chain link fence on many athletic fields. Black, the color black is not as obvious. When I'm not making
Would you consider letting us perhaps paint the fence with a green galvanized color?
What
Would
is
that
it
be
now?
less intrusive?
Unpainted now?
No, it's the aluminum color, this silver.
I don't know that would make it better. Are there thoughts on that?
I mean, we just put it in because what was there was so unsightly, it wasn't.
That's a new fence?
Yeah, that's a new fence, and we put it in because what was there was not really protecting from having kids or pets go over that wall.
What
And,
was there?
something that was all broken down and crumbling. So, that wall has about a 10-foot drop off behind it, down into the stream bed. So we really did it for safety, and we would like it if we could just paint it or weave something into it. That would be.
Well, the weaving would have the downside of blocking the green behind it, as you pointed out a minute ago.
I think pretty much any fence will keep people from going over it. I mean, I don't think it has to be a chain link fence.
Could you suggest some alternatives? Come back with suggested alternatives?
Yes.
And we are making a distinct effort to make the North State Road corridor more attractive, and that, every bit helps.
Okay.
If you can't find the photo now, that's okay.
I have recently been on a couple trips where you take a zillion pictures, and unfortunately I didn't have it stored, but I'll come up with it. It'll just take a minute more.
Or you can send it to the,
I can go there and take a picture tomorrow and send it to you, if that works for you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, not a problem.
What would then be the next step on this?
So if you think the plans are developed enough, you can set a public hearing, or you could wait to see another round of plans, whatever the board wants to do.
So, we know they're gonna show, oh, you already have shown the flags, the wetland
Mhm.
flags.
Yep,
We
yep.
haven't seen it yet, but it's ready.
I think there's enough there. Just
There'll
schedule
be
a
enough
public
there, yeah. Yes. Let's do that.
Okay.
Public hearing for the August 18th.
We would really appreciate that, because we, as I said, we're trying to park cars on top of each other and underneath each other right now. And we're renting 5 spaces across the street at $100 a month, so it-
Yeah.
we'd
Okay,
really
great.
appreciate that. Okay, so
that
August
would be great.
18th.
You can come back with suggested sign, how the sign would look, suggested changes for the fence, details on the infiltration, is that right?
Yep. Well, we're calling it the stormwater runoff, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And one other comment, I had a hard time reading the PDF. The resolution was not adequate. So when I expanded it, I couldn't read some of the finer text, like the identifying text for the bushes.
Okay,
So if, when you save it, next time, if you can save it at a higher resolution, that'd be great.
no problem.
Are there any further comments from the board or from the?
Well,
consultant?
just that I'm not asking that the planting information is updated to current, current policy, procedures, and that a couple of those, what I discussed, those plants would be, switched out.
Okay, so switch out the pin oak and the crabapple. And
Yeah.
is somebody making note of all of these things, or am I going off my notes? We'll get a copy from somebody here?
I think we're going mostly off of your notes.
Okay, so I
but-
have signs, fence, stormwater runoff, update the planning information, and change the pin oaks and crabapple, and save at a higher resolution. Did I miss anything?
No phosphorus.
No phosphorus.
Yeah, that was update the planning information, yeah, no phosphorus. No manure, no fertilizers, no anti.
I really question why there would be no anti-desiccant placed on the plants.
Because it's not policy anymore to do that. It's been found to not be very effective, so it's pretty much a waste of time.
Well, it's a wax though, I mean, it has no environmental impact.
Yeah, it's just you're putting an input in that's not necessary. So it's I don't know anyone that does it anymore.
Okay.
So is there anyone from the public on
If
this?
if the plant is watered enough, then the plant is hydrated, you'll be good to go.
That I completely understand, but, I don't agree with that. Anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think the idea was hopefully to preserve the plants and get them to be able to catch there. Having somebody going around and watering the plants in the parking lot may not happen as often as we would want to have it happen, and this would ensure that the plants were able to survive their first year of planting.
Should there be a watering system built in?
I don't think we need a watering system, but we just want to make sure that, the plants do make it through the first year. But if it's something that you don't want us to have for some specific reason, we can.
It'd be better to water the roots, like to have water in the roots zone. So if there's a way to navigate that, that would be more optimal.
Okay.
By watering, are you suggesting an automatic watering system for the roots? Or just saying that,
Me?
yeah,
No, I just think that they should figure out like somehow way to get the,
We can introduce
Water.
a watering schedule.
okay,
right. That's good.
Okay.
okay.
Did I miss anything? I have signs, fence, stormwater runoff, the planting information, and the pin oaks and crab apple, and the save at higher resolution and watering schedule.
And phosphorus.
Yeah, the phosphorus was update planning information. That's the phosphorus, peat moss fertilizers, manures, and anti-desiccants. Right.
Okay,
and we'll see you at the public hearing. Thank you very much for all your time and patience.
thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
We'll see you on August 18th.
August 18th. Same bat time, same bat station.
Great. And do we have the Sharon Casinathan?
That was us, that was us.
Oh, sorry.
That's us.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I meant Armstrong
We
PH.
were here and we got approved.
593, right. You're both North State Road.
Next one.
They are
Armstrong
on
PH.
Zoom.
They're on Zoom.
Yes. they're
Yeah,
on
the
Zoom.
principals are on Zoom, Kazi and Red Gosme are on, they were listening in from home.
Very good. Greetings.
Good evening. My name is Brian Stone. I'm the attorney for 593 North State Road and its tenant Armstrong Plumbing. I'd like to start my comments by going back with a simple overview of what has happened since September of 2018 when Mr. Chin, as chairman, signed the approval of the site plan. My clients promptly began work to perform accordance with the site plan, but quickly found during excavation in the area where there was to be a parking lot, a paved parking lot, and a retaining wall, that there was a water main owned by the town that was underneath the property. My client promptly but carefully backfilled the excavation near the water main, and the water department issued a stop work order so that no damage would occur to the water main. Since then, I've had many communications and emails with the town's council, Christy Adana, and I'm happy to say that she and I and our respective clients have the same goal in mind, and that would be to allow the water main to continue, to grant an easement to the town for which there would be no charge, and to basically allow what has existed for some period of time to be legalized. We have completed all the work that is not impacted by that water main, all the work that we could do without violating any stop order or endangering the water main. We are seeking a modification because it would be far better for all concerned if we can eliminate the need for a retaining wall, not pave over this area, and if that's the case, there would be no reason to put in additional drainage other than what has already been installed. Obviously, we want the town to be able to have its water main. We are not charging for that easement. We also want the town to be able to preserve its limited funds and the taxpayer funds by not having to restore walls and pavement and drainage that would be necessarily damaged when there is need to make repairs or to maintain or even to replace. So that's what our goal is, and that's why we haven't completed the project, why we're looking to have the modifications that I just mentioned. I'd like to emphasize, if I may, that during the period of time that my clients had signed a contract, but before closing on the purchase, they did their due diligence. They came before the board seeking to use this property for commercial purposes. They had a title search, and it did not show that there was a water main that the town had put on this property. They had the title report that didn't show it because there is no public record of this. Now, as they've gone from a contract vendee to the owner of the property and tenant, after having exercised due diligence, what they're looking to do is legalize the existing situation. We don't look to do anything to upset the apple cart. We're looking to maintain the status quo. As I said, my client is not looking to profit. My client is not looking to recover damages for any encroachment. My client is not looking to charge a fee for the granting of an easement. the work has been completed other than for those three areas. The retaining wall, the pavement for a parking lot, and the drainage that would necessarily be required just for that pavement. We have the benefit for almost 3 years to see how well this situation is doing. Is there a problem over here? We have put in other drainage, but I'm happy to say that the system that we have in now is working well. And we think that as long as we don't put in the pavement, the land will absorb any rundown, any water that may occur. We don't see a problem. And truly, if it ain't broke, we shouldn't fix it. I say we don't see a problem because during these almost 3 years now, we haven't had any accidents or other incidents. There haven't been any complaints. There hasn't been any icing in front of this property. The proof is that the system is working. So I think that because of a water main, unbeknownst to my client when he acquired the property, a water main that the town had put in, and that I think everybody wants to be, to have the town to have that water main or to replace and repair it, the best thing to do is to modify the plan. This would be a win-win situation because the town would limit its expenses whenever there's a need to do any work on the water main. It gets to keep its water main. It has a free easement. The property to some degree remains in its natural state, its natural beauty. And for my client, it actually does lower some of the costs that would be involved. So that's the purpose of seeking the modification. That's the reason why we haven't completed the project, even though it's been almost 3 years. And with that in mind, I'm happy to address any issues or questions anyone has.
Thank you. Why don't we start with Dan describing your findings?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, as the attorney said, I guess I'm trying to work this thing out. It was an unfortunate situation, but nonetheless, trying to come to a solution that both parties can live with. But I guess the issue is that what's before you is essentially a revised site plan as part of tidying up this whole thing. And, you know, in reviewing the plan, there are a couple of issues that need to be handled, and I'll just run through them quickly. One of them is the plan, which I think the last one we got was a March 12th, 2020 plan. Is that the last one that we have?
Yes, I
Okay.
believe so. Yes, it is.
Okay, because what that plan isn't really showing is isn't showing the extent of the area that's actually being used for parking. So that area should be delineated on the plan, and even, you know, sort of approximately show where the parking stalls are. You know, not that if it's gravel, obviously they're not going to be striped, but to show that we've got compliance with the amount of parking spaces we originally intended. So we should also know the surface. I think I don't know if it's an item for gravel, but we should memorialize what the surface is that the applicant has there. And again, it's really not depicted on the plan we have. So the next two comments kind of go hand in hand, and that is to actually show what the as-built condition is. I think that the drainage is the proposed situation, but the most relevant part of it is that the original plan sort of required the runoff to be directed into the infiltration system. So if there's no, you know, it isn't going to be piped, but there needs to be some kind of swale or other conveyance to direct that water in there. And I believe there was also some drainage to direct the water coming off the hill, the clean water around the parking lot, so that it's not directed into the infiltration system and overloads it. To advance this application, I think we need some more tweaks to guarantee that the drainage system will work in the unpaved scenario as intended on the paved scenario. Granted, there'll be a little less runoff, but nonetheless, functionally, we want to keep the water going where it was intended to go on the approved plan.
And so you agree that keeping it as a gravel is preferable for the maintenance of the water line? Is that the main impetus for that change, the material change?
Well, I guess there's two issues, and the applicant can jump in if I misspeak, but one would be that, yes, if the water main had to be fixed, we have less repair cost if we're not digging up his parking lot to do it. The other thing was the removing of the retaining wall. So it does make the parking lot a little more of a cross slope than was originally intended. But, to that end, you want to see that the grading without the retaining wall can accommodate the parking stalls that we contemplated when we approved it.
Thoughts from consultants?
Yeah, so I didn't provide the board a memo. I made some notes in the general email. So just similar to Dan, I agree with all his comments, and I noted the same thing, that it needs an updated site plan. But also, the prior application had landscaping plan as part of its site plan approval. And so I understand the applicant is amending the site plan for easy access to the water main, but I would recommend that the applicant should still provide a landscape plan as part of its submittal. And a few of the trees that are identified on the site plan that was submitted are already removed on the site. So I think it would be helpful as part of this application to have that landscaping plan either updated or the applicant acknowledging that they're going to install exactly what was approved prior.
Which they're already indicating that they're not going to do.
Well, they haven't submitted it as part of this submission, so that's the question.
So they have to memorialize these things that we're talking about.
Right, because if this site plan is superseding the one you already approved, you don't want to leave out stuff that was part of the original approval, other than the wall and the parking lot paving.
To me, it doesn't sound like the board is ready to set a public hearing. There seems to be more work to be done on the plan.
Comments from the board?
Not at this time.
That's time. Nope. Donna?
Yes, so I definitely, I'm interested in seeing the updated site plan with all the things that Dan and Valerie mentioned. There's also, since this project was approved, I'm sure there must have been some bamboo on the property when the project was approved, but now there's a lot of it. So I think the goal should be, I'm totally fine with without the retaining wall and the gravel and all, but I would have to say it is definitely an eyesore from North State Road right now. It's a lot of trucks are parked there, and hopefully landscaping would help that, that's for sure, but you also have a big stand of bamboo that should be removed. So I hope that can be considered as part of that. That's it.
Is that bamboo serving as?
It's not a huge stand, so it like now would be the time to get it before it takes over the whole property. So it probably was really small back when the project got approved, and perhaps no one noticed it, but now it's doing very well. But now would be the time to remove it rather than let it take over the entire property.
So, does the applicant agree to make that a part of the landscaping plan?
Removal of the bamboo?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's more attractive from the road. So my goal is that North State Road looks more attractive. That view.
And we would hope that would be the case. And so, yes, we would we would remove the bamboo.
Excellent, thank you.
Is that all, Donna?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so, my main comment is that, the site does not look good right now. And since the parking area, is not well defined, because it was, never completed the way it was shown, it sort of has a sprawling look. I'm assuming that, when you show the updated site plan, it will show the delineated parking area and landscaping around that parking area. And I'd really love to see some screening of the trucks. Today I drove by there just after business hours, and there were 10 trucks, and it really looks. I think it would benefit from some screening. So if you can have your landscape designer take screening in mind on the plan, I would appreciate it.
That's something that we can look into. I'm not sure exactly what type of screening would be beneficial there, but we will look into that.
And actually, since the wall is no longer being considered, I think that makes it easier to put in screening, because it's just sloped ground then between North State Road and the parking area, if I'm not mistaken. So it seems ripe for some easy screening.
So Gareth, you mean planting, right? When you're saying screening?
Yes, I mean plantings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plantings of sufficient height and density to block the view of 10 trucks or a large portion of them.
If the applicant comes back with arborvitae, is this board gonna be okay with that?
Donna, you hear that?
I think it should be more natural looking. You have, it's a very natural looking area back there, so I think it needs to be more natural. And I think when you put in some, like a mix of things, it will redirect the eye away from the trucks. If they're sufficiently, if they mature to a sufficient size.
Okay, I think that's all.
Arborvitae also will not survive the deer in that area. Just saying.
Okay, applicant, you making note of that?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any further comments from the board or consultants? Do you have any further questions, applicant, for us? If not, should we set a date for the applicant to come back? When would you like? Do you think you could be ready for the next meeting, August 18th?
Some of this is going to be dependent upon what our landscaper has to say, but why don't we put it on for that? And if we have a problem, we'll notify the secretary and see if we can't then change it. Would that be agreeable?
Sound good?
That
seems reasonable.
Yes.
All right, sounds good. If there are no further comments from anyone, we thank you and we look forward to seeing you again. And we.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here by Zoom. It's a little more difficult hearing everything, but for me, it's much better.
Great, good. It seemed to work out. Our technical guru is here, worked it out really nicely. Thank you, Sandy and Margaret. Okay, so has everyone had a chance to read the June 16th minutes? And do I have a motion to accept them as
So
written?
move.
Second.
Okay.
Okay. How do you vote?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes?
And I vote yes as well. With that, does anyone have any new business they'd like to bring up? No? With that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. How do you vote, Donna?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So this meeting is adjourned, and I get to use the gavel for once? First
Yes.
time? There we go.
Quiet gavel.
Thank you.
I thought you might like that.
better than